Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to the NoDQ.com live recap of NXT Takeover 36. Crazy to think that there have been 36 NXT Takeover pay-per-views. I still, personally, would prefer if these takeovers had an actual name instead of a number, but it's nitpicking. NXT once again delivers, in my opinion. I have a poll up in the chat room. Leave your letter grade for Takeover, and I will look at it when we get to the end of this. Matt Helms sent in a $10 super chat, says, "Hello, Aaron. Thank you for tuning in, Matt. Thank you for the super chat. It is very much appreciated." Now, let's get to this pay-per-view to close out a very eventful weekend in wrestling. A lot has gone down over the past 48 hours. It's been a little bit overwhelming at times, but we've gotten through it. NXT TakeOver is now in the record books. Shout out to Hamp Kano, who's back home in Florida. We kicked off TakeOver 36 with the $1 Million Championship match. The champion, LA Knight, defending his title against Cameron Grimes, who had Ted DiBiase in his corner. Before the match, DiBiase brought out a trash can and Grimes threw his butler clothes into the trash can. He was optimistic that he would beat LA Knight, and the stipulation of the match was that if Grimes lost, DiBiase would have to become Knight's new butler. Pretty good opening match here between these guys. DiBiase even helped launch Grimes into Knight at one point. Match went back and forth for a while. Knight went for a springboard moonsault but missed, and then Grimes went for the $1 Million Dream but was unable to get it on in his first attempt. Later on in the match, Grimes got the $1 Million Dream on, but Knight was able to counter that into a pinfall, just like when Bret Hart countered the $1 Million Dream when Steve Austin put it on at Survivor Series in 1996. Bret Hart won that match with the counter, but Knight was unsuccessful. Knight did, however, escape the $1 Million Dream, and then Knight attempted to cheat by bringing the $1 Million title in the ring and potentially using it as a weapon. Referee stopped him from doing that, and then Knight got knocked to the outside of the ring. Referee was busy with Grimes and the title. DiBiase punched Knight and then put the $1 Million Dream on Knight while the referee was distracted. Knight was taken back into the ring, and then Grimes hit the double foot stomp, the cave-in, to score the 1-2-3 victory. Really fun opening match here, and now Cameron Grimes is the new $1 Million champion. DiBiase presented Grimes with the title afterwards. Good stuff here from these guys to kick off the show. JM Jeff Meacham with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Jeff. He says, "Cool win for Cameron Grimes and $1 Million Man. Full recap of my weekend in Vegas as soon as Aaron is done tonight." That's right. So when you guys are done, make sure you check out good old JM Jeff Meacham's recap of SummerSlam weekend. He was there in Las Vegas. And as far as the poll goes, I could only put 4 options. So I put A, B, C, or D, and D's obviously the lowest, and that will also count as an F. I mean, that's the way it's going to be with the polls because there's only 4 options. Feel free to cast your vote, and then I will look at the answers at the very end of the video. Kurapika07 says, "Should Grimes be the next challenger to the NXT title?" I don't think he needs to be at this point. He's a babyface character. But we'll talk about maybe some options for the future at the end of the live stream. Let's move on here to the next match, which was for the NXT Women's Championship. Raquel González versus her former friend Dakota Kai. Pretty good match here from the ladies. Wasn't a show stealer or anything, but it was entertaining. Pretty much your typical big person versus smaller person match. Dakota Kai slapped Raquel right off the bat, trying to get Raquel emotional and off her game. Dakota was using speed to her advantage, went to the outside of the ring whenever Raquel would start to build up some momentum. Raquel did get her hands on Dakota, threw her around the ring, military press slammed her, but unfortunately for her, she hurt her arm in storyline. She was selling the arm, and that's when Dakota was able to capitalize on that and hit Raquel with a Yakuza kick, sending Raquel to the outside of the ring. And that might have been what saved Raquel, because Dakota got her back in the ring and Raquel was able to kick out with that much time passing since being hit with the move. And then they started trading near falls. Raquel hit a sit-down power bomb. Dakota kicked out of that, and then Dakota hit a double stomp from the top rope, a coup de grace, and Raquel was able to kick out of that. Dakota had Raquel up on top of the corner, went for the Yakuza kick again, but this time Raquel caught Dakota and she came off the top with a super one-armed power bomb. Pretty cool finish here. Scored the 1-2-3 victory over Dakota to retain the Women's Championship. Looking like Dakota Kai, as I mentioned in the predictions video, she'll be heading over to the main roster. She's been doing dark matches. Was not surprised by this. And then after the match, we had Kaylee Ray over from NXT UK come out to the stage, and it looks like we'll be seeing that matchup take place as the next NXT Women's Championship match. Mo Cameron with a $2.79 super chat says, "My body is still shaking from Borked laser return." Well, thank you for that, Mo Cameron. I appreciate the super chat. Next up, all right, here we go, guys. Next up, we had Walter defending the NXT Championship against Dragunov. This was a rematch from last year during the pandemic, one of the best matches of 2020, and they managed to have a classic without fans, and that's what made it all the more impressive. This time we had the fans. Going in, I had very high expectations for this match, like really high expectations, and let's talk about it. So these guys just once again beat the holy hell out of each other. Dragunov got a few early chops. Walter just got fired up and they wrestled on the mat for a while. Dragunov was able to get the upper hand. He wore down Walter. Walter was able to use his power. He chopped Dragunov several times, literally chopped Dragunov off the corner to the outside of the ring. And then Walter powerbombed Dragunov on the ring apron. And that's when Walter really started to dominate the match. Dragunov eventually, with a back body drop, got the upper hand. And then it went back and forth for a while. They exchanged chops, various blows back and forth. Dragunov's chest was starting to turn red from all the chops. He got a few near falls on Walter. Dragunov hit a drop kick from the top rope and then a top rope senton. Dragunov charged at Walter, but Walter then hit a modified German suplex, and then Dragunov came back from that. Still wasn't able to put away Walter. Fans were chanting, "This is awesome, fight forever," NXT chant. I feel like this was the loudest the CWC has been for a match up to this point. Like, they were red hot for this. They were invested in everything, as was I. Sometimes when I'm watching a match, I might be distracted by Twitter. I might not be totally invested. But this match, I was invested from start to finish. Like, these guys could just do anything, and I was into it. Like, these guys, They're so good at making it look real. And to me, that's the art of wrestling, is to make it look as real as possible without getting hurt, hopefully. I mean, that's the old Bret Hart mentality, to make it look as real as possible without people getting hurt. And of course, there's gonna be the redness from the chops. There's nothing you can do about that. But they just beat the hell out of each other and made it look like they were having a fight to the near death. I mean, it was just brutality with all the physical punishment that they were delivering towards each other. Dragunov made another comeback, and he started hitting Walter with repeated elbow strikes. Dragunov got a sleeper hold on. Walter kept trying to power out of it, but Dragunov just kept holding on with the sleeper hold. And then eventually, he got Walter to tap out. That's right, Walter, after 870 days as champion, Dragunov finally got Walter to tap out, ending that very lengthy title reign, which we don't really see in wrestling these days. Very few people have that kind of longevity as a champion. By the way, happy birthday to Daniel, who is in the chat room tonight. Thank you for tuning in. Nick Lavin says this match was insane. MVP Kev says this was great. Michael Wayne says the best match of 2021 in SummerSlam weekend. And to me, it was absolutely a match of the year candidate. It has to be on the list this year for the No DQ Year-End Awards. Fantastic stuff from these guys. Exceeded my expectations. Just a pure work of art from these guys. Like, I loved it. I loved every minute of it. Great match here from these guys. Cannot say enough positive things about it. If you didn't see it, go out of your way to watch it. And if you can't find enjoyment out of this match, then how can you even be a wrestling fan? Because this is what it's all about. Two guys just getting in there and having a great simulated fight where you're into the action. It looks like it hurts. It probably does hurt to a degree, but these guys hold nothing back. Awesome, awesome match from these guys. And nice celebration afterwards, and Dragunov put his foot over the body of Walter, who was just laying out there. Like, it really felt like these guys had a complete war, and somehow they survived. And for Dragunov, he actually was able to stand up and hold up the championship. All right, now we move on to the 2 out of 3 falls match. Kyle O'Reilly versus Adam Cole, baby. Of course, the rumors about Adam Cole, what's his future? We'll talk about that in just a few minutes here. The first fall was a traditional wrestling match, which was very short. They went right after each other, very fast-paced, and it pretty much ended within 3 or 4 minutes. I'm not sure the exact time. O'Reilly countered a Panama Sunrise attempt into a pin and scored the first fall over Adam Cole. Again, very short match. And then the second fall was a street fight. You had chairs, you had trash cans, but pretty early on, O'Reilly hurt his midsection, and Cole was able to take advantage of that, exploit that weakness. Cole got a kendo stick, started using it on O'Reilly. O'Reilly refused to stay down. They traded blows back and forth. O'Reilly got the upper hand. They went to the outside on the stage, and then O'Reilly threw Cole off the ramp into the plexiglass, and then they got back into the ring, but then Cole managed to grab O'Reilly off the top and slam O'Reilly onto 2 chairs that were set up in the middle of the ring, and then Cole finished off O'Reilly with the last shot, making it 1 apiece. No surprise there. The only thing I was surprised about was that O'Reilly won the first fall, because typically in these types of matches, the heel gets the first fall to have the psychological advantage, because at that point, the good guy has to win 2 straight falls to pick up the win. So I was a little surprised about that, but other than that, pretty much what I expected here. And then we had the third fall, which was the steel cage match. But before the cage could completely lower, Cole went after O'Reilly. Officials were checking on O'Reilly, and then Cole powerbombed O'Reilly onto the announce table, got him back in the ring. O'Reilly refused to give up, so the cage match started, and O'Reilly managed to get back into it. They threw each other into the cage a little bit. O'Reilly hit Cole with his own last shot maneuver, but Cole kicked out of that. And then Cole with a low blow, which of course is legal in a cage match, got control of the match and then hit the Panama Sunrise, but O'Reilly kicked out of that. And then Cole had a pair of handcuffs, which he brought into the match earlier. He handcuffed O'Reilly, super kicked O'Reilly, and then started trash talking, saying that he was the guy that made the Undisputed Era, etc. But he got a little bit too cocky, and Kyle O'Reilly caught his leg, put on a submission, and even though O'Reilly only had one arm, the other arm was handcuffed, Adam Cole tapped out to O'Reilly, and the crowd did not really like this finish. Even though it was creative, it pretty much came out of nowhere, and I don't think people really bought the idea that O'Reilly could win with one arm handcuffed, but he did. I feel like the crowd was chanting bullshit. I might be wrong on that, but that's what it sounded like to me. And yeah, very mixed reaction to the finish here. Let's see what you guys thought in the chat room. Gary says, this match fell off the rails with that finish. I really don't know what to think of that ending at all. Absolutely hated this very much. And Walter Cruz asked if the handcuffs are overused. I mean, they do get used quite a bit, but I don't remember a finish like this before. I applaud them for the creativity, but it did feel kind of abrupt. Hamp Connor with a $2 super chat says, these guys need one more match. Well, I think this is it. I don't think there's going to be one more match. And it's looking like Cole is done. The Young Bucks teased Cole coming to AEW on Twitter, and Britt Baker replied to it. And the word is that this is the end of Cole in NXT. And my gut feeling is he's probably going to AEW, but we'll see what happens. We'll see what's next for Adam Cole. And again, make sure you guys check out Jeff Meacham's stream that will be going up right after this one. Jeff just posted a link. Jesse Mendoza sent in a $25 super chat. Very generous super chat from Jesse. He left no comment. Thank you very much for that, Jesse. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in and watching the streams. I appreciate it very much, and thank you all for your super chats. Match was really good, but I'm going to be straight here. I think after the NXT UK title match, like, nothing was going to follow that. Like, that match was just perfect. Like, I really think that was about as good of a match as anybody could have. And I don't think this was the best Adam Cole versus Kyle O'Reilly match. I think the match they had earlier this year at Stand and Deliver was better. Just my opinion. I don't think it was their best match, and it just had a really, really hard time following the previous match. And then the finish didn't really go over that well with a lot of people. So it was a very good match, but I did feel like it was dragging a little bit at times, and you kind of know how this thing goes with the first fall. The other guy's going to win the second fall. They're clearly going to do the cage match. So, you know, and then with Cole, you could see him every time he slaps his thigh. It's pretty much the same stuff we've seen in their other matches, just a little less of an impact as the previous match that they had. Like, they couldn't top their previous match, nor could they top the UK title match. Hamp Connor with a $2 super chat says, do you feel he's better off in AEW or the main roster? Probably AEW. His girlfriend's there. His buddies are there. If he goes to the main roster, it's unlikely he would be anything more than a mid-carder. You know, he would go there. He would probably be in the Dolph Ziggler role where he might get some TV time, but he'll mainly be putting over other people. Like, that would be my gut feeling. Maybe he'd get a tag team title, or maybe get a run with the US title or Intercontinental title. But that's probably as far as he would go on the main roster. So even though AEW's roster is getting crowded now, I could see Cole coming in and maybe doing a match with CM Punk, or doing a match with Bryan Danielson at some point, and maybe doing a match with Kenny Omega, Christian Cage. I just feel like Cole would have a lot more opportunities to do the type of matches that people like to see from him in AEW. So my gut feeling is Cole, but we'll see what happens. And now we move on to the main event, the NXT Championship. Karrion Kross defending against Samoa Joe. I just feel so bad for Joe. Like, this should have been a really big deal. But the problem is that Joe had all these other events happening right around the time of his comeback. NXT has kind of fallen from grace, fallen from the top of the mountain. Not as much positive buzz about NXT, even though their shows are always good and the pay-per-views are always great. But people have kind of died down when it comes to the NXT hype. They're not quite as into it as they used to be. And then you had CM Punk returning. You had SummerSlam, Brock Lesnar, Becky Lynch, and oh yeah, by the way, Samoa Joe was back. And I wish this was a bigger deal. It just didn't feel like a big deal. Mo Camera says, I'm sorry to say this, but NXT is dead. Let's be honest here. Well, according to Nick Khan, WWE president, NXT will in fact be getting a revamp over the next several weeks. And yeah, the NXT that we all knew from a couple years ago, with more Ronaldo on commentary and the rabid crowds on the TakeOver pay-per-views, the 15,000 people, that era of NXT looks to be over. And what happens next remains to be seen. But we've talked about it, talked about the reasons why it's cooled off. Let's talk about this match. Speaking of guys I feel bad for, how about Karrion Kross, a guy who felt like a couple months ago he was going to be the next big thing in wrestling. And now it doesn't really feel like he's got that much momentum. He came out to the ring, no Scarlett, so he doesn't even have Scarlett in NXT anymore. And the crowd chanted, "We want Scarlett," which if Vince McMahon is watching this, he's thinking, well, Scarlett seems to be the star of the act. Like, he could look at these guys as the new Mark Merrow and Sable, where Sable was the one that was getting the reactions and Mark Merrow pretty much went into obscurity. Like, I feel like that could end up happening with Karrion Kross at this point, with the fans chanting Scarlett. And then they were trolling him. They were chanting Hardy in the opening moments of the match. And it was a good match. You know, it was a good, hard-hitting, back-and-forth match with these guys, but it could not compare to that NXT UK match, not even on the same level. And I love Samoa Joe, but they just could not live up to the expectations of what we saw earlier. Like, they just could not follow it. Joe, if this was 2004 Samoa Joe, he might have been able to pull it off. But 2021 Samoa Joe, he still did good. It was still a good match. Joe had a nice start in the beginning. Kross caught him with a Saito suplex, knocked Joe to the outside with the forearm smash. Joe made a comeback and hit a power bomb. Kross kicked out of that. Joe immediately put on a crossface submission, but Kross got to the rope. And then Joe put on the Coquina clutch, but Kross was able to break out of that and get the Kross jacket on. Joe acted like he was going to pass out, but then, he had blood pouring down from his mouth. Joe, at the last split second, had a last burst of energy, a second wind, and he powered out of the submission. They continued to go back and forth for a few minutes, and then Samoa Joe picked up the victory with the Muscle Buster, which I can't remember the last time we saw it. I know he retired it not too long after the unfortunate accident with Tyson Kidd. So it's been a while. I don't know if he used it in NXT. I don't remember, but it's the first time he's used that move in a very long time. And he picked up the victory to become the first ever three-time NXT champion. Congratulations to Samoa Joe. He's basically in the Finn Balor role now as the veteran of the brand, which as I said before, I think it's a good idea. Finn Balor back on the main roster and put Joe in there as the new face, veteran face of the brand. And you can put him in there with Pete Dunne. You can put him in there with a number of people. And you got some fresh matchups. Gargano, Ciampa. Like, you can do a whole bunch of fresh matchups now with Samoa Joe as the champion. And now Karrion Kross is completely done with NXT. Now that he doesn't have the championship, he'll be a full-time member of the Raw roster, which he's already been. He's been working both shows. Hamp Connor with a $2 super chat says, what was the downfall of NXT in your opinion? Well, I would say moving to 2 hours was not a misstep, but it took away from what NXT was and a winning formula that it had. To me, it was really the combination of the pandemic, because you didn't have that rabid crowd at Full Sail, and ultimately I think NXT should have done shows on the road. AEW was a problem for NXT because AEW basically became what NXT was. NXT was the alternative to main roster WWE. And then AEW came in and basically became a better version of NXT because they had guys like Jericho, Jon Moxley, Kenny Omega, these world-class wrestlers. And they were doing shows in arenas every week compared to NXT at Full Sail University. And perception is everything. So you turn on the television and you see one show in an arena full of people, the other show is in a little tiny building. Well, the show in the arena is going to look more major league and is more likely to get the eyeballs. And then more Ronaldo leaving. I know people say the announcers are not that important, but I disagree. I think more Ronaldo was the soul of NXT in a way. Like, his voice, I associate a lot of the great NXT moments with more Ronaldo's voice. And I think losing him was a big blow. Anyways, let's do the letter grade now for the show. And Gary Joe talked about Pete Dunne's contract being up. So if that's the case and he's not re-signing, they best get that Samoa Joe Pete Dunne match out of the way, because they did tease it. And I hope they deliver on that. So looking at the scale here, 47% of you gave the show an A, 34% a B, 13% now gave it a C. This is in real time. And 6% of you gave the show a D. So overwhelming A for the show. And yeah, I would agree. I would give it an A minus. I mean, it was a great show. NXT, they always deliver. This was not the best takeover, but I mean, it was a damn great show. Everything was at least good. And the UK match was phenomenal. 2 out of 3 falls match was very good, and the main event was good. So overall, big thumbs up for the show. Really enjoyed it. But if there's one match you check out, you got to watch that NXT UK title match, because that to me was definitely a match of the year contender. Michael Wayne, Mike B give it an A, Matt Helms with a B, MVP Kev with an A-, Darren with an A+, Jeff Meacham gives it an A-. As far as NXT versus SummerSlam, Darren asked me which one. I mean, I would say NXT was the better show, had the advantage of being 2.5 hours, had the best match of either show. So, yeah, I would give it to NXT, between NXT and SummerSlam. SummerSlam, like I said, my problem with SummerSlam, too long, and there were several weak matches on the show that did not need to be there. But if you trimmed the fat and had the best 2.5 hours of SummerSlam, I probably would have gone with an A- for SummerSlam. I went with a B-, but I think that they would have been neck and neck if it was the 2.5 hours of SummerSlam instead of the 4-hour SummerSlam versus the 2.5 hour NXT Takeover. Mo Cameron says, why did Becky Lynch agree to do that to Bianca Belair? She does what she's asked to do. She has a contract, and she does what the person who's signing her check asks her to do. Bottom line. And Nick Glavin says Rampage was better than SummerSlam. Well, CM Punk, I mean, to me, that was the moment of the weekend. But there were a lot of great moments. There were a lot that were up there. Brock Lesnar returning, Becky Lynch returning, Edge making the entrance with the Brood, and, of course, the NXT UK title match. It was a great weekend for wrestling. And I really do want to thank you guys for tuning in and following NoDQ.com. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. Tell a friend. Keep spreading the word about the channel. I really do appreciate it. And anything you can do, whether it's text a friend or tweet something, post something on Facebook, share something, anything you can do goes a long way. Stay tuned to NoDQ.com this week. It's going to be a busy one. We got a lot coming up here. I'm sure we'll talk more about the fallout from this weekend. And check out Jeff Meacham Network. Jeff's going to be talking about his experience being there in person. You can hop right over to his channel. He just posted the link in the chat room. Check that out. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night, and I will see you all next time.